Gentlemen, we are slowly creeping up on the start of the NFL football season, and we're about ready for another mock draft. It's been a couple weeks since we've done our last mock, and we all know things change by the day here in Fantasyland. So, as you can see, we have another 12-team PPR mock draft going on here. Mike and I are going back to back with picks 1 and 2. That should provide for some interesting conversation there. Dante's in the middle. And Kyle's anchoring us at the back end of the first round or at the back end of the draft here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and we'll start the clock. Mike, you're on the clock with the first pick.
Oh, okay. Man, so a lot of things do change, Zach, like you said. But one thing that does not change is Christian McCaffrey at 1.1. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm super pumped to be able to build a team around McCaffrey this year is just so exciting. You basically have a free pass to the playoffs. So I cannot wait to see what I get here.
Yeah, it's really hard to argue with McCaffrey. I think the only other place is where I'm going to go here at number 2, and that's with Dalvin Cook. I had him on my fantasy rosters last year, and he was just incredible. Now, obviously, baked in with him is going to be those couple weeks that he misses every single season, it seems like. But, it is what it is, realistically. So I'm going with Dalvin Cook, and I'm happy with that.
All right. Well, for me, maybe it might be the hype of Hard Knocks that kind of makes me influence this pick. But I'm going to go Ezekiel Elliott with the sixth pick. Apparently, there's reports of him losing a lot of weight. And primarily focusing on the passing game. So I expect him in terms of PPR. Normally, I would take Derrick Henry if it was a regular league, but in terms of PPR, the receptions really do matter. So I think Ezekiel Elliott will be a primary focus for Dak Prescott. Also factoring that they are super close in general, and that's something that you really shouldn't ignore when looking at these type of players, especially when, again, Hard Knocks is focusing on that. So Ezekiel Elliott, I'm going to go with that. Not to mention the offensive line is really good in general. So it should provide a lot of open lanes for them.
So sitting here at pick 12, I'm going to take my one of my favorite wide receivers in Davante Adams.
Kyle, let me just jut in real quick. Can you show the roster just so we can I forgot to mention that.
For what?
Just our overall roster.
Yes.
Here, our construction.
So
just so you guys, so we're all aware, it's a quarterback, it's 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex spot, and we have defense, and I believe 6 bench spots. So just so everyone's just familiar with that. So I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead, Kyle. Go back to where you were.
Yeah, I feel like at the 12th spot, you're kind of sticking between what is it? Kind of that bottom end of the top running backs, or you're looking at going after one of the top receivers. And I kind of went in the path of a top receiver because Davante Adams with a guaranteed Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback can't do any wrong. And then for my second pick, I'm going to do a little bit of Stephon Diggs because I love me some Josh Allen. I love me Stephon Diggs, and those guaranteed targets are a blessing. So give me that stack of those top 2 receivers.
This is tough.
He's thinking.
It's between Calvin Ridley and Justin Jefferson, and I'm thinking I'm gonna go Calvin Ridley, just because Calvin Ridley is going to be the number 1 option. We don't know how Kyle Little is going to progress in terms of like the anticipation for his progression is going to be high, but Calvin Ridley is already a bona fide number 1 wide receiver. He's going to get those targets. So I'm gonna go with Calvin Ridley just because he is going to get those targets, which means In terms of receptions for PPR, that's really important. And I'm going to go with that just for that reason alone.
All right, so here with me on the board, two of the guys that I really kind of like to snag in the back end of the second round just went. I really like the upside of Najee Harris, and I really like the upside of Antonio Gibson. Unfortunately, they both went. I personally, I'm a big running back guy. But in this situation, I think I'm going to go running back, wide receiver. Even though they're both on the same team, that just happened to catch my eye here. Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook, both Vikings. You know what? I actually think that's going to make me pivot right there. I'm going to reach a little bit and go with my second favorite tight end, I guess, Darren Waller. I think he provides a positional advantage every single week at tight end, and I really love snagging him in that second, third round range because I think if you can set and lock that tight end and not worry about it week in and week out, that's just such an advantage, you know. So that's where I'm going, Darren Waller.
So you value Darren Waller over George Kittle?
I personally do. Yes, I think he's more important to the Raiders offense from a receiving perspective than Kittle is to the Niners offense from a receiving perspective. Just because they have Ayuk, they have Deebo Samuel, they have a couple of pass catching backs. There's other places to go. But I think I saw a tweet today that said that the Raiders don't have a wide receiver inside the top 60 wide receivers in the NFL. Like that's how poor the receiving core is. He is their guy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, yeah, if you didn't go Waller, I mean, that was a no-brainer for me. Just there's no way that in PPR redraft leagues this year that Darren Waller should make it out of the second round. Not a shot. So I was definitely looking him there. Because you passed on him, I'm going to go ahead and take the other Viking with my first pick here, get my wide receiver one, and then I'm going to immediately take the back out of this batch of running backs that I think is really going to have a breakout year this year, and that's DeAndre Swift. I really think the man is destined for greatness this year. Getting my good old friend Anthony Lynn from over in LA with the Chargers last year.
Not Anthony Flynn.
Not Anthony Flynn, not to be mistaken with the infamous Anthony Flynn. Guy has the highest rate running the ball in NFL history. And now he's going to a team that will probably be in the bottom few teams of the league. And he's going to run the ball. And he did it last year with the Chargers. And that man goes with a hot hand. And I really think it's just a breakout year for him this year.
Yeah, I'm also a big Swift fan. I really like that pick. And of this next chunk of running backs, like you mentioned, he is probably my favorite. Him and Clyde both stick out to me. I think Clyde's going to have a very nice bounce back season. But I'm actually going to reach here. And I'm going to go for one of my favorite RB2s in fantasy this year. If you're in the back end of the draft, I think he is a great steal for really high upside. And that's David Montgomery. He's the only show in town in Chicago. And he's just set to really kind of take on a huge workload this season. And to pair him and Dalvin Cook, two workload backs with my early tight end, Darren Waller, I love it. Can't argue with that.
I'm frustrated because I knew he wasn't going to make it to the 12th pick, but I knew Dante wasn't going to pick him. And I knew there was a chance, but you taking him.
Dante's got beef with Montgomery.
I love him this year.
I was actually going to say George Kittle, and I'm tight that the computer's going to rob me on that.
How about that start from Team 4? 3 running backs. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I love those 3 too.
Mm-hmm.
Dobbins I could have waited on, but
I think I'm going to jump on the hype train, and I'm going to jump on Kyle Pitts as my fourth, as my third pick. I know that's a little high for a tight end, especially when it's his rookie year and we don't know exactly how he's going to be. But I predict that he's going to be. Well, I mean, I don't think this is like a huge, jump, but I think he's going to be the second option in terms of receptions, in terms of players on that team behind Calvin Ridley, and I don't know. I just feel like he'll wow a lot of defenses in terms of his speed and acceleration from the jump, and he'll have a lot of opportunities to prove that he is probably a top 3 to 5 tight end in this league, ability wise, in terms of his skills. So I would, I'm gonna go on Kyle Pitts. Sorry, Kyle Pitts, just because.
So I am going to take my RB1, who I personally think is the last running back I'm comfortable with as my number one running back, and that's Chris Carson. I think he's on a team that is dedicated to running the ball for some unknown reason, but they are. And he's the guy. He has been the past few seasons. He gets hurt and seems to potentially lose his job when he comes back, but he gets it. He comes back to another 15, 20 rush attempts every game. The man is going to get the ball. He's going to touch the ball. He is their workhorse back in Seattle, and he's going to score touchdowns. I love Carson. I was dreaming that I would get Montgomery and Carson as this stack at the end of this third and fourth round at the turn, but Zach ruined those dreams. But at least I got one of them. And for my fourth pick, I'm just gonna do it. Josh Allen. I love the dude. I love the dude. I'm excited for his potentially follow up to his breakout season. And to stack him with Diggs is a dream. Chef's kiss. I love it.
Well, with my pick, I got to go Hawk here, so I might as well go Chris Carson. Chris Carson, am I up?
Kyle just took him.
Where is he?
Kyle
I just took him.
Oh, really? Oh, my fault. I'm behind on everything. Like my thing hasn't gone up yet. All right. So the options here. Amari Cooper, I'm seeing. I'm gonna go Chris Godwin actually, just because he's a slot receiver. Brady kind of favors him. He's projected 91 receptions. I think he's actually going to get a little bit higher, just because Mike Evans is probably going to be covered in the red zone because he was targeted so much in the red zone last season. I believe he was at least a top 5 receiver in terms of receptions in the red zone. So I know defenses are going to focus on him when it comes to that position. So I'm going to go with Chris Godwin just because in PPR, receptions are more important than I think people realize. And Chris Godwin is liable to get those touches, which in PPR is going to matter more importantly than usual than in non PPR. So I'm gonna go Chris Godwin with this pick.
Ah, son of a gun. Team 3. All right. Well, I was looking to go CD Lamb here, but things happen, so we got to pivot. I'm actually going to go elsewhere, and it's a guy I haven't been drafting this offseason, and I kind of want to change that because I do believe in him to be a solid fantasy asset this season, and that's DJ Moore.
Wow.
He really has kind of been under the radar a little bit, dating back to 2018, I believe. He was a wide receiver 1. He's had some quarterback issues. He's had some different people coming and going through the offense, different systems, and he's finally kind of got things to settle down. I know he's got a new quarterback in Sam Darnold again, but I'm confident that Moore is going to rack up a lot of receptions and really, you got to remember Curtis Samuel is gone from last year. So someone needs to absorb those targets, and I don't see why DJ Moore can't be that guy to take on that heavier workload. So that's where I'm going, DJ Moore. Also, I just need to mention all of my players start with D so far. I think I need to keep that going.
Keep it going, then we'll see the 5th round. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with the wide receivers here. I'm gonna go Robert Woods. I'm kind of surprised he fell this far. me personally, I see the computer took Julio Jones in there. I would not have Julio Jones above Robert Woods at all this year. But I guess he got mixed into that tier there. Kyle, shout out to you with the Josh Allen pick, by the way. That is something that I definitely would have done if he was at my 4th round pick. If for how early Mahomes goes, it's mind-boggling that the computer even skipped all those quarterbacks in this draft. So I don't think that's how most redraft leagues are going to look this year, but it is a possibility. If you have a kind of old school wait on QB kind of league, it definitely could look like this. Getting back to the pick, I got 2 running backs, 2 receivers here. I'm going to go back to playing it safe here. I'm going to grab a running back. I see a lot of 1A and 1B backs here. Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, James Robinson, Travis Etienne. And there's one guy in there that I don't believe is a 1A running back. I still think he is the number 1, and that's Myles Gaskin. I'm going to take him here. I'm basically taking all the camp news and I'm throwing it in the trash. Fading the camp news. I don't care what is going on. I've seen multiple people come out and just explain that the guy has pure athletic ability. The guy is more athletically gifted. Apparently he's working harder at camp. I'm fading all the news about Malcolm Brown being there and taking away from what he's going to do this year. So I'm taking Myles Gaskin.
Yeah, I love that pick. I think Gaskin is a lock to be the workhorse in Miami. A much improved offense from last year, and I think he's a steal in the 5th round right now. I think. All right, so I'm looking at another wide receiver here because I have a long time until it comes back to me, and then in that range, I'm looking at guys who I'm really not crazy about. Some people like Juju, DJ Chark, Jerry Jeudy. So I'm trying to get another wide receiver on my squad right here. I also kind of looked at quarterback really briefly, but the next 3 quarterbacks up, Dak, Justin Herbert, and Russell Wilson, are all actually lower ranked than someone I can grab later on in the draft. So I'm going to hold off on quarterback for now, and I'm going to pick up another wide receiver, and that is going to be Deontay Johnson. I'm not ironically continuing the D trend. It just kind of happened. But Deontay Johnson is he's taken over the role as the number 1 in Pittsburgh without a doubt. For whatever reason, Juju really kind of has fallen off a little bit as the lead dog in Pittsburgh, and we're seeing a trend towards Deontay Johnson just continuing to gather targets. I think he was on a trend last year. In the last, I don't know the exact number, however many games of seeing 10+ targets a game. And if he continues that for an entire season, he's looking at 170 targets, which is insane volume. He is almost a lock for 100 receptions this season, and his only knock is a couple drop issues from last season. So if he can fix that, I think he's a PPR sleeper big time in the 6th round, or the 5th round. So that's where I'm going.
So real quick, how do you guys feel about Lamar Jackson, Kyle Murray, and Josh Allen being picked in the 4th round? Yeah. Do you think that's an appropriate position to pick those players, or do you think that's a little too high?
I think for those guys, I think it's a very appropriate spot because they have that rushing Konami code secret weapon to their style of gameplay. So there, it's like if you're not in love with the running backs, receivers, or tight ends, it's just like, oh, why not? Take one of those top guys, and I think that's a fantastic spot to take them.
Cool. All right, so I had James Robinson and I had Adam Thielen queued up if no one else took them, and I'm gonna go with Adam Thielen with this pick, just because he gets those red zone targets, and the fact that he gets those red zone targets means that more chances than not, he's going to get those touchdowns, which in PPR, you'll get a significant amount of points just based on that alone. And Adam Thielen is a target monster. He has been in the past. Kirk Cousins has favorited him as a receiver. So I'm going to go with Adam Thielen. And yeah, that's going to be my last of the 4th pick or 5th pick.
Kyle, real quick, two really interesting things. One, let's look at Team 4. 5 running backs to start the draft. That's bold to say the least. And then Team 9 has a tight end and 4 wide receivers. That's also very bold. So we got some interesting things going on.
Well, it looks like Team 4 has drafted the first bench player of the draft.
Who's that?
They can't start 4 running backs.
Correct. True. Technically, they drafted 2, right?
Technically, yeah.
Because 2 running backs and a flex.
Good for them. Good for them. I would never do that, but good for them. All right. With my pick, I'm not in love with any of the receivers in this range. So I've got my 2 guys. I am super comfortable just waiting on them for right now. This range of the draft for receivers is like the one spot where I am totally fine looking the other way. And because of that, I will take this first pick with TJ Hawkinson. I personally think he's in for a huge season with potential top 3 numbers. I'm not to say he's going to be number 1. I think Kelsey's going to keep that throne forever. But I think Hawkinson with Goff and being the one remaining receiver from last season, I think he's going to be great. He's a solid dude. I think he's going to be in line for a solid 6 to 8 at least receptions every game, and that's the floor I need in the tight end. So give me Hawkinson. And with my next pick, it's going to be a slight reach, but being at these corners of the draft, you kind of have to reach if you want your guys. And I'm going to take running back Chase Edmonds for my RB2. And he's another one of those guys who's like super late. If you're waiting on running backs, he's a guy that I love to wait on. I think he is going to be the receiving guy in that backfield. James Conner does not pose any receiving threat to him. And if anything, he just handles the goal line work because Edmonds has not had a goal line rush in his career or whatever crazy stat that is. But I love Edmonds. I love his potential, and I'm totally happy with him as my RB2.
Real quick, just to go back on the tight ends, is Travis Kelce like a bona fide round 1 pick for you guys? Do you think he's always going to go in a round 1 in any draft?
I would personally take him at earliest 7th.
Yeah, I don't see any world where he falls into the second. And if he does, maybe the first or second pick of the second round at absolute lowest.
Yeah. I think you're going to get those 2 guys at 11 and 12 who are just like, I'm iffy on Kelce in the first, but if he makes it to them in the second, they're like, yeah, I'm easily taking this dude.
All right. I'm going to go Mike Davis just because in the PPR league, he's a receiving back. He's projected to have, I believe before I picked him, he had 46 receptions. I believe he's going to have more than that. I put him easily in, the 60 range, like 60, 65, just because that offense is a pass-heavy offense, and Matt Ryan is liable to check down to the back often. So I would go Mike Davis just because in the PPR league, receptions do matter. As many catches as I can get for my players is how I want it. So I'm going to go Mike Davis for that.
That was actually going to be my pick if you left him there, Dante. I don't know if you realize you did it, but you have 3 Atlanta players so far. Do you feel okay about that?
I do, just because I can just vote for I can just root for one team for the season. As I got into fantasy, I started to deter away from I'm a Giants fan naturally, so now that I have money on all these leagues, the team that I go with, the team that I have the most players on, I guess, is the team that I'm going to root for, and I guess that makes it more fun for each season. Rooting for a different team depending on how many players I have on each team. So I am going every time I watch the Falcons, at least for this draft, for the mock draft. I'm going to be a Falcons fan for sure.
Respect that. All right. I am going to go with the running back from the San Francisco 49ers, Raheem Mostert. He is kind of falling in drafts. You see him going in the 6th round here. And he really kind of has a lot of value, I think. Last year, he was far and away the starter in San Francisco, and he had an injury and it knocked him out of that starter role. But he's healthy again, and Jeff Wilson is injured, so he's kind of the guy there. And I think getting that value in the 6th round as my flex or even just a bench option or a replacement option on bye weeks is great value. So I'm going Raheem Mostert.
I like that pick. He was definitely someone on my radar for if he did make it to the end of the 6th round, I would need to take him. That's really where I have him going, is right around those same group of guys. Mike Davis, Williams. I have ETN right around him as well, a little bit below him actually. But let's see. I got two wide receivers, 3 running backs. I'll even it out here. A lot of receivers on this list. This is like one of those moments where you want to fight. Wow, this guy's really talented, and then wow, this guy's opportunity sucks. And one of those guys I think is DJ Chark right now. Another one of those guys I think is Courtland Sutton. You can even throw Jerry Jeudy in there as well. I love Jalen Waddle. I think he's going to be the most successful wide receiver in his draft class. I think he's by far the most talented. His situation sucks. And that leads me down to Brandon Cooks. I don't care who that guy's quarterback is. Wide receiver 1, the guy has been solid every year he has played football, minus the concussions from here and there. But, yeah, dare I say one Houston Texan. Let me go ahead and throw a second one in there. I'm also going to stack David Johnson here. The guy is the bona fide number 1 back there. You're going to have Phillip Lindsay coming in to spell some time for him, give him a breather here and there, catch some 3rd down passes. The guy puts up stats. I don't think there's been a year in the league where this guy hasn't at least came into the league and done the bare minimum to at least get you into that running back 20 conversation. So if I could possibly get a running back 20, 25 at the least in the 7th round, that's something that I will not pass with that first pick there.
Okay, so for myself here, earlier I alluded to my quarterback rankings, and I think that this is where I am going to go ahead and take my quarterback. Now, I can't lie, Aaron Rodgers sitting there is extremely, extremely tempting, but the other guy that I'm going to take is actually ranked above him in my personal rankings, and that is none other than Tom Brady. Brady has 3 stud wide receivers. He has his favorite tight end target in the whole entire world with Gronk. He's got a pass catching running back now with Gio Bernard, the best line in the whole entire league. He's got everything he needs to be successful. I don't care. He's 44. You saw what he did in his 43-year-old season, something that no one else has ever really done at that age. And I love him this season. I think he provides huge upside going in the middle rounds here. So I'm all aboard the Tom Brady train.
I'm actually surprised by that, Zach. I thought you would go Jalen Hurts because he has that dynamic of having the running game option as well. But
yeah, I do like Hurts, but I think it's often understated how important a good offensive line is. And a lot of times I'm going to lean to a guy who has an offensive line over someone who's going to be running for his life every single play. And I think that's what Hurts is going to be doing. So, and not to mention, he's got his number 1 receiving target this year is a rookie. So I'm staying away from that.
all right, well, I'm tied between Deebo Samuel and Robbie Anderson, and I think I'm going to go Robbie Anderson just because I feel like he'll get more targets in terms of route running. I think he is the better wide receiver. And then route running is important because you'll have more opportunities to be open. I know Sam Darnold is the quarterback. Depending on whether he'll succeed in that offense it's a bet I'm willing to take. He has a lot of options in terms of Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. So I'm willing to go Robbie Anderson just because I feel like he'll get those targets, just because DJ Moore will probably garner that much attention from the defense. So I'm comfortable taking Robbie Anderson in terms of the targets for PPR.
Dante, I think I would have made the same decision. I think Robbie's in for a great season, but at the same time, I was also happy you made that decision because I wanted to draft Debo. I think people forget just how great Debo Samuel was before his injury. And he came back for that one game, was electric, and got hurt again. But as far as I know, the dude is healthy and is going to be electric again this season. So for my wide receiver 3, in the 7th round among these guys, I am insanely happy to draft Debo. I think he provides immense upside for where you're drafting him. And I love him as my wide receiver 3. And then, this part of the draft kills me because it's just like I'm not sold on anybody. And everybody I'm looking at that I'm interested in, I can absolutely wait on. So I am. And I'm going to draft. Yeah, I'm going to do it. Jerry Jeudy. I think he could be and will be Denver's wide receiver 1, fighting out the guy who was drafted right behind him, Cortland Sutton. But I think Jeudy is going to be what he was drafted to be, and that is their wide receiver 1 to be exciting and just kind of make plays where he needs to. And I think he'll be a very consistent dude this season. And I'll take him as my 4th receiver.
All right, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take a chance here. It's me, right? I'm gonna take a chance here, and God, this is tough. I'm going running back, and I'm going Buffalo, but there's always that chance that you might pick the wrong running back, and then someone else takes the backup. So if I go Buffalo here, I have to take Devin Singletary, and then my next pick I have to take Zach Moss just to lock that in, just to be sure. Or I could go Trey Sermon, just because Mostert is 29. He appears to be the 1B to Mostert's 1A, and eventually may usurp Mostert in terms of those touches. Raheem Mostert did average 13 carries. I think I'm going to take that chance and take Trey Sermon, just because I believe in his ability as a running back. I think he may usurp Mostert in terms of touches going into later on into the season. Yeah, it's a tough call, especially at running back at this position. I mean, other options would be James Conner, Kenyon Drake in terms of receptions, Damian Harris too as a big running back, getting those yards. But I think Trey Sermon will eventually take Raheem Mostert's spot as the leading back, and eventually get those yards and carries that will eventually, help your team in the long run.
So I'm actually ecstatic of the guy that fell to me here, and that's Michael Carter. Michael Carter is the rookie running back for the Jets out of North Carolina. And for me and my projections, I actually have him as my running back 20, which is higher than someone I took earlier on. I reached on, well, reached is an interesting word, but I drafted Raheem Mostert a little bit earlier on, who's my running back 25. So to get someone that I have ranked more highly later in the draft is fantastic. So I'm going Michael Carter here.
I like that pick. I was actually thinking Michael Carter was going to go around round 6, maybe early 7, something like that.
I did too.
But looking at what I got here, I have 4 running backs, 3 receivers. I'm going to definitely go double receiver here. I'm the type of guy, if I don't get my quarterback tight end early, I'm going to wait. And I do have some sleepers that I'm excited to take later on in this draft that I know I'm going to get later on in this draft. So 2 receivers. I'm actually going to take back-to-back number 2s on their team here. I'm going to take Mike Williams, who I think is bound for just a great year. New OC in LA. I think that offense is literally just untapped with potential there. And then I'm also going to go with Darnell Mooney. That is some camp news that I'm not going to fade. The guy was phenomenal last year. Never got the spotlight, never got any of the attention behind Allen Robinson and just the struggling team in general. I think the team's headed in a better direction with Justin Fields joining the team. Andy Dalton is pronounced the starter, and you know what? I'll take those long ball ducks all day, and I'll take my chances with Mooney.
Mike, my heart skipped a beat there a little for a second when you said you were going double wide receiver because I thought you were going to take my guy here. And this is a guy that I'm very happy plugging in as my wide receiver 3. I think he's got immense upside. Even last season, people don't really kind of give credit to the season that he had. In PPR, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 performances of 13 or more points. And he only had less than 10 on 3 occasions. So, and that guy is Antonio Brown. So for me to pair Antonio Brown with Tom Brady, that's a touchdown stack right there. So I'm not only going to get 6 points, I'm going to get 12 points whenever they throw a touchdown, whenever Brady throws a touchdown to Antonio Brown. So to get him as my wide receiver 3 in the, the 9th round here, I love that value. And I'm happy the cards fell the way that they did to me.
How weird is it seeing on Antonio Brown in the 9th round? I remember him just being at least a top 2 rounder.
He was the top 3 pick at one point.
Yeah. It's just weird. It's weird to think about in the past 5 years.
It's just been a roller coaster. Yeah, it really has been. But I looked at his card. He's 33. And I was kind of like, oh, but I feel like he's a young 33, if that makes sense.
Totally.
All right, with this pick, God, there's really not a lot of options here. I'm gonna go Devin Singletary with this pick. I know Zach Moss is equally as important to that offense, but Devin Singletary has been there a little bit longer, and he's been the lead back. I know Zach Moss gets those receptions, so in PPR that would be more beneficial, but at this stage, I feel like people aren't going to look at Zach Moss as much. And I feel like I would have the option to pick him, not to show my cards, but I feel like, I would be able to get him with the next pick if I wanted to go with that. In terms of Buffalo in general, if you did pick one running back, you would have to pick, the other in either the next round or the round after. Just to make sure that you would have that running back core locked down, just because they fluctuate so often with their running back. So if you were to go with Buffalo, my advice, I would go, if you had to go Buffalo, I would go, Devin Singletary and then Zach Moss, just to make sure, you have that handcuff. And with Zach Moss, you have the ability to have those receptions as well.
Kyle, just to butt in real quick, I just want to mention one guy real quick. I love the value on Damian Harris this late. I think he's the one, and I think he's a workload in New England. So to get him late, I think that's a great steal. So just to kind of mention that real quick.
The only option with Damian Harris, though, is that in goal line touches, Cam Newton usually gets the nod in terms of getting those goal line touches. Especially when it's really close at the goal line. So that's the only reason why I kind of was hesitant on Damian Harris, just because Cam Newton is liable to get those, goal line touches. But at the end of the day, Mac Jones might be starting for him. So that you have to kind of just have in the back of your mind when looking at the Patriots. That's why I kind of sided away from him. There was just too many possibilities, and in fantasy, I think you need to be absolutely certain who you pick.
That's fair. Agreed.
All right. So my first pick on the turn was good old Will Fuller, the dude who will be suspended a few games to start the season. But I think once he returns, he's going to be the guy that Miami went out and got him for a reason. And they're not just going to sit through that suspension for nothing. And I think he's going to pay off more than anybody else I could draft in this area. And I think he just kind of does this thing enough to be my comfortable wide receiver 5. And I think he'll absolutely perform a lot better than that towards the end of the season. And then for my second pick, I will pick one of my favorite late round running backs in J.D. McKissic. I think he is just the receiving guy in Washington. I know they want Antonio Gibson to be their third down, all down type of guy, but I think they take a little while to ease him into that full-time role. And McKissic, he was second in the NFL among running backs in targets last year. And I truly don't think those targets just disappear because he's still on the team. He's still there. It's the same coaching staff. And I think he kind of benefits us still being on the team. So I'm comfortable with him being as my RB3.
So I know I said Zach Moss. If you had to pick the Buffalo running backs, you'd have to pick one after the other. But because they have projected, or Sleeper has projected Nyheim Hines with 50 receptions, it's kind of hard to ignore. So I'm going to go with Nyheim Hines with this pick. Just because in PPR, he is going to get that nod in terms of the passing offense for the Colts. Carson Wentz isn't there for the beginning of the season, but that should be even more reason that a quarterback would check down with a running back, especially a receiving back like Nyheim Hines that has been established in this league for a long time. And the PPR receptions are pretty much a majority of the reason why you would go with, or a reason why receiving backs are important in that league. So I'm going to go with Nyheim Hines with that pick.
All right, so for my pick, I'm kind of going into the trenches here a little bit. I'm going with another rookie, and not only a rookie, but another rookie from the Jets. I'm going to go with wide receiver Elijah Moore. I really, really like his upside in this offense. I think he's explosive. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder, and I think we could see a huge season out of him. And realistically, as my as my fourth wide receiver, if he pans out, he does. If not, I have my 3 starters already. So as a bench stash, can't argue with it.
Love it.
So leading me back to my double back-to-back pick here. Like I said, last round, I'm a late quarterback tight end guy, and I knew I could wait until the 10th, 11th turnaround to get him. And my QB of choice here is Kirk Cousins. QB 11 last year when he finally got his dynamic duo in Jefferson and Thielen. I just think that offense has literally had a year to just click and get it down. And this is going to be their second year at it. And things just get better with time. I think Kirk Cousins is comfortable now. He's found his home there, and Justin Jefferson's ready to break more records. So give me all the Kirk Cousins there. And second, I'm going to look tight end here. It is extremely, extremely hard for me to ignore my guy, Jonnu Smith. I represent the fan page. It would be impossible for me to pass on Jonnu here. So I'm going to go ahead and take him. A lot of tight ends there that I really don't think are any tier busters. And what I mean by that is I really think that they're all in the same tier there for the most part. Like 15 or 20 of them that I have in my rankings, the next tier. I do have Tim Tebow, who's a standout. I think everybody should take him as early as possible in drafts. Him, I think all the fans I have from here on out are really in that same tier. I don't have anybody breaking through ceilings here. So,
All right. For my pick, I am actually going to go with another running back here. And this is a guy I'd love to grab late, mostly because he's like guaranteed value. He's not sexy. He's not going to, he's not going to be that flashy running back that puts up those 20, 30-point weeks, but he's always going to get you like 10 points. And that is none other than my guy, Gus the Bus, Gus Edwards. He is one of my starting running backs in Dynasty, and quite honestly, I'm not freaking out about it because I know what I'm going to get with him, and that's consistency. And regardless of what J.K. Dobbins does, regardless of what Lamar Jackson does, he's going to get a workload of some kind, and they paid him. So he's definitely a part of their plan, and I couldn't be more happy to get him in the 10th round or the 11th round.
All right, at this round, I'm going to go quarterback. And as much as I, as a Giants fan, want to go Daniel Jones, especially because he has the options of Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard, and Kenny Galladay, most importantly. But I'm going to go Baker Mayfield just because he has more options to play with Austin Hooper, not to mention Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham coming back into the fold. I think he's poised to have a great season with all those weapons, as well as it being, he isn't a rookie anymore, so the game is going to be slower for him with those options, and they'll have a lot more opportunities to provide points for players because his offense is so stacked. Not to mention his defense. The defense of the Cleveland Browns is going to improve significantly with the additions with Jadeveon Clowney and others. So with that, I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield with that pick.
All right. So I am actually quite surprised to still see this man here. He's a guy I personally think I'm a little higher on than the rest of the world. But I think this team is just going to score. They're going to throw. They're going to do a lot on offense. And that's Michael Gallup. I know he's the third receiver there, but I think last year when Prescott was playing, he was still a valuable player to start in fantasy leagues. And I think he will be again this year. I know CD is taking that step up, and quite honestly, Amari Cooper might be taking a slight step down, and Cooper or Gallup might just chill where he has been and kind of ball out slowly and quietly, but productively. So he's my pick. And Zach, I am 100% reaching, but I'm doing this because I know you were going to take him this round or next. And I'm taking our fight guy, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's a dude that I know both of us love. Mm-hmm. He is quite honestly in line for a huge season. We saw in the preseason game, Goff was immediately ready to rely on him on his first few throws. He is adjusting to the offense really well. And to go along with my Hawkinson pick, I think he's going to have a good year. Much better for the value that you're drafting him at.
All right, it's me again. So with this pick, I'm actually going to go with the defense, and I'm going to pick the. It's tough. It's between the Browns and the Bills. I think I'm going to go with the Bills just because they have a younger secondary. Their secondary is phenomenal in terms of interceptions last year. Their interior line is also really good. And I remember last year they had a couple games where they did have a lot of turnovers, and it proceeded to turn into a lot of points for that team. So for that reason, I mean, you couldn't go wrong with the Browns defense as well, especially with the addition with Jadeveon Clowney. But I think for the Bills, they have that consistency, and they haven't really added anyone super important to that team. So I'm going to go with the Bills just because they have been continuous progression in terms of their ability.
All right, for me here, I'm going to tack on another wide receiver. I'm a little sparse in the wide receiver department, especially since I have to start 3 of them, and I only have 4 right now. And as I mentioned one is Elijah Moore, who's kind of an unknown quantity, but this guy is a definite known quantity. He showed it in the preseason game. He's a big play wide receiver. He's huge. He's going to get the ball. One of my favorite late round targets. I think he's criminally underrated right now, and that's none other than Marvin Jones. So I'm excited to get, who I think is the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville. Mike, I know you and I share a love for him the same way Kyle and I love Amon-Ra. So yeah, we're gonna have a dogfight in the late rounds of our personal drafts when we have our draft in a couple weeks. So yeah, Marvin Jones, he's my dude here.
Zach, I'm gonna remember that one, man. That's
all right. All right.
That one. All right, so I basically have all the depth I need. I could probably get through a long season with the depth that I have running back, receiver-wise. And obviously you never want to say that because you will jinx it. So I'm going to knock here. I'm going to take another QB backup here. I don't want to mess around. I'm going to just lock in Matt Ryan. The majority of my redraft leagues, especially last year, seeing what I went through, leagues got very, very thin on quarterbacks quick, and not starting quarterbacks, but quality quarterbacks. And I think that's where I found a disconnect last year with myself. I relied too much on starting quarterbacks, thinking that they would give value, and that value was light years behind what the top 10 quarterbacks are looking like. So I won't mess around. Take a guy like Matt Ryan, improved offense, see what's going on this year. And then I'm going to also go with my backup tight end. One guy I'm really high on this year is Blake Jarwin with my boys. I was excited for him last year. He was a guy I took in the 14th round of my redraft leagues last year, thinking I had a late steal tight end. I think I took him and Jonnu very close to each other, and he ended up tearing his ACL out for the season, and now he's back. Him and Dak are both on a comeback season type vibe, and that's what I'm rocking with.
All right, so for my pick here, I'm going with none other than a security blanket. As I mentioned when I first took him, taking Dalvin Cook comes with inherent risk. And in order to back that risk up, I got to go with the handcuff. So I'm taking Alexander Madison here. Doesn't really need a lot of explaining.
All right, with this pick, I'm going to go with Giovanni Bernard, just because in PPR leagues, it was between him and James White for me. They both projected to have the same amount of receptions, but in PPR leagues for running backs, I think Gio is going to have the more opportunities to get those receptions. That's basically the reason why. I mean, if you took James White ahead of him, I wouldn't be mad at that. But I think Gio just has more opportunities to have those receptions, so that's why.
I had 2 running backs in my queue to lead up to these final 2 picks, mostly so I'm not stuck with just 3 running backs, and that was Giovanni Bernard and Jamal Williams. And because of that, I'm just not going to take a running back. I'm sitting here with 2 picks, 2 receivers, and I know these guys aren't going to take them, so I'm just going to say both of them. And I'm going to draft the one, which is Traquan Smith. He is the only New Orleans Saints receiver right now. I know they signed Kevin White yesterday, and that's not going to work out. So Traquan is the one dude who can play receiver for this team. Regardless of who's throwing to him, he's going to get the ball. He's going to play. And at this stage of the draft, I personally think he's a steal. And the other guy is Brian Edwards. I constantly see through the past week, I'm not drafting, I have to take a defense. But Brian Edwards, I've just seen hype piece after hype piece about the guy, whether it's from beat reporters, from the dude that just watches practices, or Derek Carr himself. It's just a lot of hype about Brian Edwards And I think he could smash this year and provide a lot of values as a guy you're drafting this late in the draft. But for my final pick, I'm going to take a defense, and that defense is the New England Patriots. I think we look at them poorly because everybody on that defense sat out last year for opting out for COVID reasons. And this year, they're kind of all back. And I don't see why they can't be a top 6 defense. So they're a team I'm comfortable taking as my starting defense.
All right, for this pick, I'm going to go with Jalen Reagor. I'm going to be honest, it's just because he had that magnificent catch with that one-handed catch that he had in the training camp. I think that he's just with that alone, he's going to get a lot more opportunities to get those receptions, especially in an offense with the Eagles where there isn't a bona fide number 1 wide receiver. So I think the more opportunities that wide receiver is able to provide for a quarterback, especially like Jalen Hurts, he's probably going to target them more, especially with a catch like that. So, especially in the last round in the draft, it really doesn't. You might as well just go with what you think is going to get the amount of receptions that you get, especially in the PPR. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Jalen Reagor.
All right. For me here, I'm taking a defense, and I'm going to take the number 4 overall defense from last year that really didn't lose a lot of pieces. They just brought back their lockdown corner, and that's the Miami Dolphins. I think that they're going to continue to be a force on the defensive side of the ball this year. I think they're going to be an improved team from what they were last year, and that all starts with the defense. So Dolphins defense for me.
I like it. I'm going to fade a defense. No way in hell I'm taking the worst defense in the draft right now. Not happening. I'll drop one of my guys eventually, pick up and play some matchups there, which you could find from our very own Kyle Krajewski, who puts out a nice article every week and helps defensive lineups. So be sure to check that out. I'm going to go for some value here. I got 4 receivers, I think, 5 receivers. I'm going to take another one with some high upside, and I see 2 starting receivers kind of sneaky at the end here. Sammy Watkins is a number 1 as of right now with Rashad Bateman being out, and Jacoby Myers is also a number 1. Kind of a forgotten guy in that offense. Nothing crazy out of him, just sneaking in barely right above the number 40, I believe, 45 in PPR, right around there last year. Missed some time, wasn't really efficient when that New England Patriots were kind of ugly in the beginning and found themselves as the season went on. I'll go ahead and take Sammy as my last pick here. He'll be the number 1, I'm guessing, for maybe a week or 2, maybe 3 weeks. Get some good value out of him and ship him off. Try to trade him to someone else in the league, And that's how I'll end that one.
All right, well, that wraps us. We made it through our 12 teams here. Real quick, we'll just go through. I don't want to prolong this too much longer. We're closing in on an hour. So out of the 4 of us, who do you guys think had the best team? We'll go down. Kyle, go ahead. We'll say out of the other 3, not ourselves.
All right, of the other 3, I'm going to have to say Mike had the better draft. I think getting Robert Woods at the end of the 4th was a fantastic seal to match with Jefferson, and I'm a little iffy on Kirk as a starting quarterback, and Jonnu. I have my opinions on the New England tight ends, but I think that starting those 4, 5, 6, 7 start of the rounds. I think you've built a solid core 6 guys, dude. And I'm a fan. So that's my pick.
Mike, how about you?
Zach, I'm going to go with you. I think you have the most well-balanced team. I just like that. You got Dalvin Cook to start. Kyle's is very balanced too. But I do like your running backs a little bit more, and I'm jealous of Waller. I really do want to come out of every draft this year with at least a top 5 tight end. And my top 5 this year, I got Kelsey, I got Waller, I got Kittle, I got Kyle Pitts, and my sneaky number 5, which I am very tentative to expose here. I have Logan Thomas actually sneaking into my number 5 spot. I'm going to leave every draft I have this year with one of those 5. And that's kind of why I'm going to go ahead and lean towards Zach here.
All right, how about you, Dante?
I'm probably going to go with Mike. As a first pick, you got Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Robert Woods in terms of those receptions. And I think DeAndre Swift, is going to be a top 10 running back in this upcoming season. So I think I'm going to go with Mike in terms of his lineup as well.
And for me, I'm personally going to lean to Kyle here. I think, Mike, I really like your running back and your receiver balance, but I think that Josh Allen and TJ Hawkinson are such an upgrade just compared to the to Kirk Cousins and Jonnu, that's going to lean me that way. Kyle, not to knock your draft, but I think I would have gone with another running back somewhere in that 7, 8, 9 round. That's just me. Maybe over Wilford, I would think, but that would
looking back, I probably would have done the same. McKissick as my only bench running back does scare me a little bit, but it was you got to take that value where you can, and I did with all of those receivers. It's like my draft theory this year is that I love all of the late round receivers, so it makes me totally want to go running back so early, but. You saw my early start with the 2 receivers, and I just couldn't find the running back value I wanted.
Yeah, now had those 2 had those 2 be there, or that I can't speak. Had those 2 at the end of the first round been Eckler and Mixon, I think your draft would have turned out fantastic, and you probably would have done things differently. But all right, so overall, that's our 12-team mock draft. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. For the rest of the guys, this is First Seed Sports. We'll catch you in the next video.
See you.